cucamelons. They are so cute. I don't have any. Hey guys, my name is Bonnie. This is Artist in a Garden, and let me show you what I have been growing this year. So I garden in Ontario, Canada. I'm in a zone 5B. And today I'm going to take you around the garden and show you what stage my garden is at in my zone. Gardening in a garden that I've never gardened in before. So this garden space is a new space for me this year. We just cleared out a bunch of trees and a bunch of wild raspberry canes and bushes in through here. And we built up some garden beds with the trees that we removed from this space. So once we got the garden laid out with some of the tree logs, I just filled those spaces with some triple mix. So we are July right now. What is the date today? Today is July 15th, 2021. And most of my garden was planted after our last frost date, which is May 14th. And the first garden that I planted were my onions. Put the root side down, pointy side up. It's pretty self-explanatory, I would think, but I'm sure somebody's gotten it wrong at some point. Don't plant your onions upside down. The root goes in the bottom and the pointy side goes to the top. So my onion bed was the first to go in, and I started most of my onions from onion sets. So those are the little bulbs that you put into the ground and you get onions from them. I also started some onions from seed in the seed starting studio. So they were a small purple onion, and they are the ones in the back here. And they have all been doing really well. My onion sets have started to set bulbs, but you can notice a few of them have been, they almost look like they've been trampled. And I think what's happening there are rabbits. We seem to have an abundance of rabbits this year. I haven't found them eating anything yet in my garden, but I have noticed this pathway through my onions. I'll come out in the morning and notice that they're all flopped over. Some of them have been crushed or sat on. I thought maybe it was a raccoon, but I did see a rabbit. So I believe it is the rabbit that has been coming in here and squishing my onions. It has definitely designated a path in the back of my onions for its access into this garden space. Also, my dill this year, I am very proud of my dill. I have struggled to grow dill. And who would have thought? Dill's a weed, is it not? So last year when I was growing my dill, I would get 2 or 3 inches of it and then something would come along and eat it down to nothing. And I tried it a couple of times and it happened both times. This year, the dill, I started it from seed in the seed starting studio and moved it out here into the garden, and it is doing really well. So I'm gonna let it go to seed and hopefully we'll have dill in the same spot next year. Fun. The trellis continues over to the other side with my red Scarlet runner beans, and those have been so satisfying to grow. They have reached the top of the trellis and they've only been in the garden about, I want to say 3 or 4 weeks. They are setting some beautiful blossoms and I really like the look of these this year in the garden. With the Scarlet runner beans comes down into this bed with my carrots and my celery, and the celery is doing really well. So in behind the celery, I have my carrots, which I did a video. I started some carrots direct seeded into the garden, and then I put some just on top of the soil and put the 2 boards on top, and they've all caught up and are doing really well. I don't have any carrots yet. Lots of green leafy tops. They still need some time to grow, I think, before we're going to get some good carrots on those. So the other side of the carrot bed, the trellis at the front, has my peas. One of my favorite things to grow in the garden are the peas. They never really last very long. They are definitely one of our favorite garden snacks to come out and grab when we're out here in the garden. Another garden space out here that's been doing really well are my peppers. I have red and green bell peppers growing, as well as some small little purple peppers. I'm not exactly sure what kind of purple peppers they are. They might have a little bit of heat to them, but they have all set fruit and they look really good. So this garden bed over here beside my peppers are the tomatoes. Does anyone remember my Save the Tomatoes project that I had to do in the spring? My tomatoes all started damping off in their trays and I put them in the garden, buried the stem and hoped for the best. I still have some of the ICU tomato cages, well that's what I call them, around them, but they have all set fruit. They've got lots of blossoms and blooms, and I gave them a good trim today to get some airflow going through all these tomatoes that have been growing really well. So in the back of the tomatoes are my cherry tomatoes, sweet 100s, and I had my first harvest off of my cherry tomatoes today. Beside the tomatoes, I have potatoes. Never would have thought I would actually grow potatoes because we have a farmer's field beside us that grow potatoes every other season. But this year is a year to grow corn. It's a beautiful cornfield, but I found some leftover potatoes in the garage that had already started sprouting, and I thought, wow, I'm gonna grow some potatoes in my garden this year. So I have 2 rows of I think they're just white, your classic French fry potato growing in my garden this year. The trellis beside my potatoes has the English cucumbers, and that was my first harvest of cucumbers this year, were the English cucumber. My zucchini bed, which is right behind me here, it has been doing really, really well. I've got lots of flowers on it. I do have some fruit setting, but I noticed there's a couple that I had to take off. They weren't fully pollinated, and when a zucchini or a squash doesn't get fully pollinated, you'll notice that little brown kind of mushy section start on the end. So I removed a couple of zucchini squash that weren't fully pollinated. And today I just went through and trimmed out a couple of the lower leaves just to give it a bit more airflow and hopefully encourage some more pollinators to get in there into the flowers and pollinate my zucchinis. From the zucchini bed, I have put in my White Night sunflowers. Now these sunflowers I started in the winter sowing method, and they came out of the container and went into this bed. And I think in the next couple of days I will have a few sunflowers blooming. So on the 2 back trellises on the garden, I have some more cucumbers, and I'm trying some cantaloupe and watermelon. I love the idea of having a melon or a larger fruit hanging down from the trellis. So that's my goal. I'm not sure I'm going to make it there this year with these, with being in a zone 5B. Depends on our weather, if we're going to get hot enough and long enough to get some of these watermelon and cantaloupe to climb the trellis and then set fruit and give me that magical trellis with melons hanging down. We'll see how that works. But I do have cantaloupe and crimson, sweet crimson, I think is the watermelon that I'm growing this year in the bed on the far side of the trellis at the back of the garden. So in behind the garden, I have my pumpkin patch. I've got my big white pumpkins, my orange pumpkins for Halloween. Hopefully we get some more growth on those. Have some spaghetti squash that has started to set fruit and grow into a squash. Beside the spaghetti squash, it goes into 3 different types of acorn squash. I have just your classic acorn, one called a bonbon squash, and my name being Bonnie, my nickname being Bonbon, I had to grow the bonbon squash. So I have a few of those plants in there, and then the table queen acorn squash as well. Anyone else growing cucamelons or mouse melons this year? This is my first year growing cucamelons, and I've decided to put them on this trellis I have in the center of the garden. It's my little windmill trellis. It kind of matches our big windmill that we have that aerates our pond. Well, it's hooked up to an aerator that the wind blows the windmill and then it bubbles in the, anyways. Cucamelons. Anyone else growing cucamelons? They are fun. They had a bit of a slow start. We had a late frost at the beginning of June this year, and I thought I lost my cucamelons to the frost. But look at what we have growing. We have teeny tiny little cucamelons. I'm so excited about these. I hope I get some actual fruit or melons or cucumbers. Has anybody had cucamelons before? Let me know how they taste. Do they taste like a watermelon? Are they more melon flavor, or are they more like a cucumber? I'm guessing they're probably more like a cucumber, but leave me a comment below. Let me know if you've ever grown cucamelons, and do you like them? How do they taste? Well guys, that's my update so far this year for my vegetable garden. I'm gardening in a zone 5B in Ontario, Canada, and definitely have zone envy for all of you in zone 7s and 8s and higher that are harvesting your cucumbers and squash and whatever else it is you're harvesting right now. Leave me a comment below. Let me know, what are you harvesting out of your garden right now? My name is Bonnie. This is Artist in a Garden. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can follow along with more updates on how my garden does this year. July 2021. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.